before we start the episode, I have a small favor to ask. If Temple Bound has meant something to you, would you take a moment right now and follow the podcast and leave a comment on the app that you're listening to? When you follow and leave a comment, it helps the podcast show up for more people who are trying to learn, grow, and come closer to the teachings of the temple. It's free and it's simple, but it really makes a big difference. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back to Temple Bound. What if the loudest message God ever sent you was a name on a piece of paper? That's exactly what happens to our guest today, Richie Steadman, who, by the way, is the host of The Cultural Hall, an amazing podcast that's been around for 15 years. We're going to talk about his faith crisis as a kid, where he served his mission in Ohio that helped him really connect to earlier saints in a very special way, all the way to almost a decade of distance from the church as an excommunicated member of the church. His inspiration and his insight on that alone is a powerful example for all of us. So stay with us through the end. Richie's final answer might be the most honest definition of perfection you've ever heard. Here we go. So Richie, welcome to Temple Bound. I am so honored to have you as a guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, and you are, like I said in the introduction, just for people who just reiterate, so you're the host of The Cultural Hall. How long has that been going on, that podcast?
What feels like any passion project for forever. 15 years. We started the 6th of April, 2011. Wow. So we're in our 16th year of doing this thing.
And what inspired you to start The Cultural Hall?
True story. Podcasts at that time. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Back then, not many people had podcasts. This was the day before everyone has a podcast. And a friend of mine that I worked with professionally, he had a podcast, and he was talking about like comic books, and he was talking about like action figures, and it was this, that was in the height of all the Marvel stuff. And I thought, man, that sounds terrible. Yeah. But I like the idea of doing a podcast. And so I thought, okay, well, what do I like? And actually, the idea had come out in like 2009 that I wanted to do it, but what I wanted to call it was The Cultural Hall, because I was like, I love Mormon stuff. This was back when we could say Mormon stuff and you didn't get side-eye from some people. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And I thought about names, and people were like, call it Green Jello and whatever. And I was like, it's not that. It's more than that. And then I fell in love with the name The Cultural Hall, and then got the social media for it, and then I was locked in, but I couldn't get the website because someone else owned the domain. So I sat on the idea for a couple of years, and then finally I was able to purchase the domain from the person who owned it, and then started publishing episodes on the 6th of April, 2011.
But what was the thing that got you, because you could have done multiple topics, right? What made you lean into your faith?
It literally is the thing that I find I could talk about the most with people. Sometimes that's religious aspects. Sometimes it's just people. And when people are peopling and you just go, I don't know why they did that. And then there's a religious root to that. Yeah. There's some part of it that I feel like my experience through my faith has been different from a lot of folks. And so I thought that there was some space for me to be able to take like some real estate as far as that goes. But then honestly, and I always make this joke on the Cultural Hall, I'll say 25% of the reason was I wanted to meet famous Mormon people in the name of recording a podcast episode, and like the top shelf, the guy for me that I wanted to meet was Peter Breinholt, because I just love his music. I love his voice. I think it's distinct. Some people may not know. If you don't know, you need to check it out. It is iconic as far as the culture of the church and some music. And then when I had him on episode 6, I was like, well, that part's done, so I guess I'm going to have to do something else.
How was he, by the way? What was it like meeting Peter?
Oh, my gosh. So he has, again, this was, this is then mid-2011. He came in the studio. If you listen to episodes of the Cultural Hall, he made the little jingles that we still use at the end of every episode and between some of our news segments and stuff like that. There's been other times where I've reached out to him and I've said, hey, I need this, or we're doing a live show. Are you going to be around? Could you do this? And he's just a guy that is so like straightforward and honest with his faith, where we've had conversations, previous episodes of our show, where he's just been like, yeah, man, struggling. Here we go. Or like, I don't see this the way that I used to see this, and here's why. And I appreciate the heck out of people that can go, hey, you know what? I know that people may think one way or about this or another, but I have got to say it the way that I feel it and know it. Otherwise, it's not worth a conversation.
Yes, there's an element of authenticity and uniqueness to your voice, your show that is so powerful because you aren't taking a view of trying to fit in to anything as much as just be you. And It's something that I think is very clear from the second anyone meets you or watches your content. You alluded earlier that you said that your faith journey has been what you considered different, is the word you used.
Yeah.
How was that different?
Well, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, so when I was a teenager, parents got divorced, and Dad was like, church is the way, and Mom was like, bye, Felicia, I'm out. And I understand the older that I've gotten and knowing how some people responded when my parents got divorced and how they treated my mom versus how they treated my dad, in large part, and it's a difficult thing to say, I almost don't blame her. Right? I almost don't blame the fact that she was like, why would I want to be a part of this with people telling me these things, not supporting me or supporting me in these terrible ways? Why would she want to be a part of it? So that first and foremost, right? I'm a teenage kid who's like, wrestling with like, why does this feel this way? And why does my voice and this hair is awfully weird? What's going on here? And then added into that is this dynamic of, and I was really black and white in my teenage years of like, Mom's going to hell. I guess I got to figure that out.
That must have been really hard. That must have been really hard. Because it's interesting because, you see that pull of how people are treated differently. You're able to see maybe the culture versus the faith of what we do. And then it's hitting so home at a time in your life where you're completely redefining who you are as a human being all at once. That must have been incredibly difficult, especially with more of a binary perspective that a lot of us have. I know I had that same perspective as well. It's like, this is right, that's wrong. Very clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I can remember in my kind of, later-ish teenage years having conversations with my mom where it's like, that's great you feel that way, but it's not going to get you to heaven. And I'm just like, oh. So then I go to college and decided to study. When I went down initially to college, I was like, I'm going to be a college guy, and college guys are business guys, and business guys make money, and we communicate, and we all these things.
Yeah.
And so my first semester of college was the absolute worst because I took like all the I'm a college guy classes. And then the second semester, I was like, I just want to do theater and dance. So we're going to load up this semester. And my mom's like, are you studying things? And I'm like, yeah. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all this stuff. Gives me a hard time about it.
That's cute. That's funny.
But I just was like, I gotta figure myself out. And I had tried to be something else and then wasn't. And then after the first year of college, I was like, okay, a mission. What does this look like? What is this about? Older brother served a mission in Argentina. Huge example to me. Like I think a lot of people do with their older brother. It's like, there's your LeBron Jameses, and they're maybe up here, but then that older brother, just older than you, he's
way better. Yeah.
For some ridiculous reason, because my brother doesn't play basketball or make millions of dollars or give me any of that, so there's that. But just looked up to him, and I was like, but I don't want to go and teach something that I don't know. I don't know that I know it. I don't know, what it's going to be like. I don't know, there were so many things. And I can remember, and don't let me forget to tell you about this because I was dating a girl at the time who said, well, you know what you should do is you should just pray about it. And it's like the first time that anyone had ever told me to pray about something, although I'm sure every young men's advisor and primary teacher and parent, but you hear it from the one that you're interested in, and you're like, and then she had the most profound message I've ever heard. She said, pray about it. And I go into my bedroom and I do the thing. This is how much of a cliche in some parts of my life is. I did the thing that I thought you do when you're praying for answers. I took my scriptures quad and I threw it on the bed, and then it opens up, and then I read the verse, And then I go on a mission. That's literally what happened. It was 1 Nephi
Wow.
4:6. It says, I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do. And I was like, well, this is the Spirit, and this is the Scripture, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So thanks, God. I guess I'm going on a mission, and that's all it took.
I love, by the way, I get both as you're talking. It's so funny because you tell it in such a funny way, and it still sounds like as profound as anything I've heard.
Yeah.
How beautiful it is. But the coolest part of the story is just that you're going through this, like, you know, that parent, like you have to hear it from someone that actually you connect with. It's almost like this parenting lesson of how many times I tell my kids things and then they'll come back and go, you know what my friend said to me the other day? And I'm like, dude, how many times have I told you? But in my mind, I'm like, I get it. I get that younger version of me who's like, no, it's got to come from there. Because you're becoming an individual at that point. You're a college student. You've tried different skins that don't fit. You're trying the ones that work. And this beautiful girl tells you something and it changes your life. That's amazing.
Just clicks. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to serve a mission. So I get the mission call and I actually open it in front of my institute class and then call my parents later and let them know where I'm going. And I open up the mission call and it's Cleveland, Ohio, and everyone's like, I'm bless my sweet institute teacher's heart. I'm sure that he saw me go womp 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 womp.
Well, there's a cultural pressure.
Yes.
I've seen it with my own kids in a way that I don't like. I'm not ripping on anybody for doing this, but sometimes when we're celebrating something, we start to develop almost a Sadducee Pharisee kind of like way of doing things. Whereas like my little boys are going to some of their cousins' letter openings and there are these huge ceremonies with hundreds of kids. And I'm like, well, what if my kid doesn't have hundreds of friends? Like, or what if they get called stateside and there's all this like social pressure to go exotic and foreign? It's like, you know, or heaven forbid, a service mission, which by the way, to me, I believe service missionaries are the bravest, strongest, because there's not this, if anything, they're fighting the culture while they're serving Jesus, which to me is the purest expression of that. So I'm not putting them above, well, maybe I am a little, and culturally speaking, only because, but even that could be a downward, spiral if I'm not careful. I'm just saying authenticity is there. So that I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he chimes in and he says, but you know what's in his mission? And I said, no, I don't. And I'm clearly just distraught about it. He's like, Kirtland. And I was like, the thing from Costco? And he's like, no, Kirtland.
Sorry. From Costco. Okay, keep going.
And I was like, oh, cool. So like the early, and then I start to get into like Doctrine and Covenants 38, 32. I will send you to the Ohio and you'll be endowed with power from on high. And I'm like, yeah, take that, suckers. But it was so hard because to your point, like my college roommates, one went to Australia, English speaking, one went to Austria, and he spent most of his time around the Alps in these little villages and blah, blah, blah. And another one went to South Africa and then Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm like, cool, guys. Well, have fun. I'll see how Cleveland is. But if I may, to all the people that have like stateside mission calls, guess what you get to do that all those suckers don't get to? Go in a 2-hour Delta flight from wherever you live, and you can go as many times as you want, and you can't just pop over to Austria or, I'm just going to cruise down to Brisbane, Australia. There are blessings from being able to be stateside that you don't get otherwise.
To chime in on that, my second son, who's coming home from Texas in 2 weeks or 2 months, he said this to me. I remember he opened his call right here with me and my wife in my office, the very one I'm talking in right now. And he opened it up and he said Texas, and it was wah, wah, wah for him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, man, do you know that I'm a 6th generation Texan? Do you know what this is going to look like? And so when he opened his call, he did one just kind of intimately with his aunts and uncles, the ones who were from Texas. And it was yeehaw. And it was, we're proud of you. You're going back home. You're going to pick up some authentic Dr. Pepper. But it was this thing about it. And somewhere around halfway through his mission, this Mr. Authentic, who was just like, you know what? This was exactly what I needed. Yep. And for me, I love it when there's disappointment. I almost look forward to the disappointment that comes to me and my family around things that are supposed to be a certain way. Because I'm learning that it's behind those things where we really get to find the Savior in our way, in our personal, no one else knows it but us kind of way. And there's, like you said, blessings. We're going to go, Texas. Oh my gosh, I fly through there all the time. We're going to be able to go back and visit those people, those temples when they open up. It's going to be amazing. So I love that you share that.
Yeah. But I didn't feel that at first. And there was part of me too, because I'm born and raised in Utah, where like I saw more cultures in the Cleveland airport than I had my entire life, and I can remember distinctly being like, okay, we are not in Salt Lake City anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I truly think this. I know that this is another cliche, but I truly think this. Like, God's kids are God's kids, and they're everywhere. And it can be like when I have found myself really like tuned in, like on my ward level. Like, that's the best ward ever. That's the best place I could be. And that's literally on the street with people who have similar socioeconomic. And I'm just like, this is the best place. Similarly, it's the worst place when I don't feel that love for people in a neighborhood that I may be living or a ward that I may be in. And so, I really do truly think it's cool to see great, like, places, but you can always travel and be able to do that. But the people, I think by far is where you go, oh, man, yes. That was my heart right there. Those people right there.
So tell me about the mission in terms of how that affected you overall. If we can go back and look at that 2-year span and just say, I see now, I really empathize with you, Richie. You're in this place of like, you're identifying who you were, but deep through this whole process, I feel this testimony that's present. If anything, you were learning how to kind of find that mercy with the justice as you're going through the divorce with your mom and all these things.
Sure.
So now you're in your mission. How did that impact you? How did that change you?
Well, the mission was a huge change, and I'll try and highlight just a couple things around it. One, it was truly on my mission that I sort of went from like the black and white to, oh, hey, there's gray. But there was a process around it. Another thing that I'll say about it is there's a certain part of me that has, I think regrets is maybe too strong of a word, but I look back and I think that if I did a mission now, I would do a mission very differently than how I did then. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. But then also, like sacred. So many things. When I think about like being a missionary and like, hey, how's it going? Jesus, I'd love to tell you about Jesus. And also, at the end of this, 45 minutes that we've spent together, I would like you to completely change your life. Are you willing to commit that? Like the like righteous, like, I don't know, the righteous ambition of something like that. I look back at that and I go, wow, that's pretty amazing. So let me pick up a couple pieces. One, I'd never read the Book of Mormon before I went on my mission. When I was in the MTC, I can distinctly remember the moment where it clicked in my brain that the Book of Mormon was another testament of Jesus Christ and that Christ came to the Americas. Yep, that's how basic I didn't understand what the Book of Mormon was. That's 100% what I'm saying. Is that what yes, it is. And I can remember in my class of like 16 people and being like, do you guys realize that the Book of Mormon is about Christ in the Americas? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, but do you realize like it's a whole other book? And they're like, yeah, that's why we're deciding to do it. And I'm like, no, like that we came, like that it's a book. And they're like, yeah, dumb. What do you
think was happening here? Yeah. But there's so many people who relate to that. My second son, Alex, told me he's somewhere about a month into his mission. He's like, hey, honestly, in the MTC, if you had told me to go flip to the book of Mosiah, I would have gone to the Old Testament first. Yeah. It's like, okay. A lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people relate to that.
Yes. So that was exciting. And then I would tell you that like loving people in just such like a big way was my favorite.
Yes.
Like I loved being able to like look at the day and go, I don't know what we're doing today, but I know that we're going to love the crap out of some people. And sometimes that meant, I don't know that cleaning gutters was loving the crap out of people, but I'll take that, God. That's fine. And other times it was like, teaching people about the restoration of the priesthood, or like that there's a God in heaven that cares about them, or that they can be with their family. Like, the massive amounts of success for me probably didn't have too much to do with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was about me to be able to connect with people and be like, hey, I love you. Certainly, I'd love it if you would do, if you meet end game of what I'm doing here, which is, that you make covenants and come in. But also, like, I just sort of love that you're an amazing person, and I love being able to connect and talk about things that deeply matter with that. So I really loved that. And then you have this whole other separate part of being like, hey, so today the town that I'm in was where Joseph Smith lived. And that temple is what hundreds of people smashed their china and ripped their hair out of their head to make sure that that building could be there. Not actually rip their hair out of their head. They just used hair clippings. But the Kirtland Temple, like this edifice of sacrifice, and being like, man, that's cool. I'm in the same place where that happened.
You're teaching it and you're right there. Like that had to have been so cool as you were learning it to have these physical, literal like representations of this is where it happened.
Yes. And it's a different kind of study, because I think when you're like, and Jonah got to the well, you're like, where is this? Is this like is this over in the Red Sea? Or are we doing this over? And there's something to it. And I think there's something valuable with studying it, but it's like Joseph Smith was tarred and feathered, and I'm standing in the place where Joseph Smith was tarred and feathered. Yeah. Oh, like the same town? Nope. Literally right where they drug him from the house, and being able to do it. It was something that was very sacred, and something that, like, because I went to the place and could see the place and could feel the place and could smell the place and could all of the senses in the place, I was like, oh, this is a whole different kind of like testimony building or faith affirming or something. This feels different than anything else that I have experienced. And I know, and we get all the people with the Book of Mormon, they're like, you probably walked where the Book of Mormon took place. Yeah, I know, but we all speculate where it is. We don't know for sure, but I know where the Kirtland Temple is. I know where the Johnson farm is. I know, where all these, the Newell K. Whitney store took place. So I'll round out a couple other things. The Newell K. Whitney store, when we served our mission, we had the opportunity to be able to start and end our mission in the top of the Newell K. Whitney store. That's where the Word of Wisdom was received. That's where the School of Prophets was housed for a while. And it was incredible because you'd start your mission and they would encourage you to make covenants with God about how you would serve.
Interesting. So it's not like, hey, you're starting here, this is a special place. It's like leverage the sacredness of this place, like a temple almost. Yeah. In this like elevated state of where you're there and you're making a commitment, but the covenant is not something that's like, revealed through the priesthood and done like the formal way we do it in the temple. Sure. This is more of the pattern of you going through and just making a special covenant as it pertains to your mission. That is awesome. Yeah.
So you get in, and I can remember I'm like, I'm going to get up every day on time and all these different things, right? Like, because I didn't know. I'm like, what am I covenanting? Here's some things I'm going to really try really hard. And, and I'll give you an example, and then I'll come back to don't let me forget, we're coming back to the Newell K. Whitney store. So I remember one of the covenants that I made was like, hey, man, God respectively, I'm going to get up every day, and I'm going to get up on time, and I'm going to go to bed, on time. It's going to be lights out. Like, that's something I can look at, because again, this is early black and white. I know if I'm awake at 6:30, and I know if I'm in bed trying to go to sleep by 10:30. That's something I can look at and go, I did that or I didn't do that. And I can remember the first morning that I slept in past, and this is not a joke, I swear to you, the first time that I ever slept in past 6:30, it was like 6:45. Huh. And I woke up, and there was like blue lightning in our room. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm listening. Like an electric charge, and I was like, holy crap, what time is it? 6:45, 6:45, God's mad, I'm sorry, I broke the covenant, I didn't wake up. What was actually happening was there was a power line that had fallen and was arcing across the grass to the apartment, or maybe it was on the apartment or whatever, but it was like sparking in the metal window frame of our apartment. But I immediately was like, God, I'm so sorry. I'll never sleep in again. I don't mean to do this. But like that's
God was manifesting to you to wake up like, hey, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, it literally was at first. I thought it was like, this is God sending lightning because I slept in. Oh, my gosh, how could you have done that? And then I sort of was able to take a step back and then be able to look at it. So that's how serious I took the commitments that I made. Going back now to the Newell K. Whitney store, it was a fascinating transition from the beginning to the end, where same group of elders in the district are back there on our very last thing. It's like, you do your last night at the mission home, you do your last meal in the morning, and then right before they take you to the airport, you go out to the Newell K. Whitney Store, and it's like, hey, you started here, you're ending here, go ahead and report back, whatever that means to you. And it's this, like as I tell this, it's this very sacred sort of feeling, and I can remember a couple of things. The first thing that I remember is you just hear this like sobbing in the room, and it's just like for me it was the sobbing of like, man, I really feel like I did everything that I possibly could. Man.
Wow.
Like I feel like I really, just like I didn't do it perfect. That's not what I'm saying. I don't know that I found everyone, blah, 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 blah. But like, I just was like, man, I really tried my hardest to do this. And then you also observed the sobs from people that you knew that they were reporting back and being like, yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't do the things that I said I was going to do. Or like they were laying out this sort of sorrow of like, yeah, shoot, sorry. Now I'm being held accountable in the same place where I began this whole thing. And so I thought it was such a unique experience to be able to your point. I mean, I would argue that it is a temple in the Newell K. Whitney Store, and I think I'd win that argument. So take that. But it's such a sacred place that I was like, man, this is the thing. And I've thought about that many times since I've been back, where God kind of led me, and then that transition to, from being black and white to being gray, that I was able to go back to the same place and be like, hey, I've learned a few things. Thanks for the journey and all of this. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be done.
I think there's something so powerful in what you shared. You're comparing this to this, black and white and gray element as you describe it. And it's true. I think what we're talking about is justice and mercy. And we see like these experiences, like it's almost like gravity, right? Like some of these concepts that we believe, these commitments, these covenants, it's like gravity. It just exists. But the problem is that when we start thinking about spiritual progression in that objective way, we remove all the human parts of imperfection that are required for us to grow and develop. That has been my journey. It's that shift of being like repentance is a correction to the path versus being the path. Like we were gonna mess up. In a way we have to. But the black and white is no unclean thing can never enter in the presence of God. So we tend to think very binary. But when we talk about gray, we're talking about mercy. We're talking about like all those elements. And it feels, I had never known about that whole thing about that spiritual experience of where you started and ended your mission. And I'm guessing you've been back since.
Yes.
How has that been?
Incredible. It's just so special. The jokey me that sort of deflects real feelings is always like, well, of course I went there because they say that Joseph Smith picks all the missionaries for the Ohio Cleveland mission, and so of course he picked me. But like the really it's I can only describe it as just this transitional, transformational. I don't know. Words don't describe it, but I would not be who I am and could not have made it through the things that I have personally made it through, church and otherwise, without the experience of being able to, have the testimony that I gained in the Kirtland and greater, Cleveland area. It was like, would not be here. We would not be chatting.
Yes.
Distinct experiences as far as that goes.
So one of the things I've experienced knowing you in a short amount of time is that you can feel the love that you have for people in large amounts very fast from you.
Yeah.
And you said it. You learned to hone that more than anything else in the mission. And I wouldn't be a good host of Temple Bound if I didn't ask you about the Kirtland Temple and if what that was like for you. I don't want to assume that you had some sort of like unique perspective of the temple, but I do want to ask, was there anything unique or anything that you learned by having that be in your mission? And like, how did that impact your experience? Here's the question. How did serving a mission near the Kirtland Temple actually impact your testimony of the temple and or how you see it?
Well, I'll answer the question that you didn't ask first. And I would tell you that I learned to never call it the Kirtland Temple like you just did. It is the Kirtland Temple. Kirtland is Costco. Kirtland is Ohio. And
everyone who knows and loves me is cracking up because I do that all the time with everything. So that's great. Kirtland, I meant, yes.
And so much to the point that it's a fun thing for me that like when people, it's almost like religious Tourette's, and I don't mean any sort of anything about this, but like when people will bear testimony and they'll be like, we recently got to go to Kirtland without even being able to control it, I will audibly say, Kirtland. So that would be the first thing.
Okay. Talk to me about the other question then. How did that go?
So Kirtland is, man, it is, man, geez, hold on. Let me get in the feelings here. Kirtland is such a special place. And it's, I almost said Kirtland is life, so let me lean into that and say Kirtland is life, and here's what it is. It's a group of people, or it is a symbol of a group of people that we can all learn from. You know, Joseph Smith told, "Hey, build a temple," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll get to it. I got some other things going on." And God's like, "Hey, but like I was serious, so maybe get to it." And then the people of the town are like, "Well, we don't really know. Like, where do we put it, and how do we build it?" And just, you know, doing the best that they can and sacrificing to be able to make the Kirtland Temple happen. And then I'm sure, again, as it's an example to all of us as far as life goes, you know, saints are driven out of Kirtland, and I'm sure both because I've read about it and just because of human nature that there were a large handful of people that were like, we built it, and now we're leaving it? Why are we doing this? Why did you have us do this? I didn't want to do it in the first place. Then I did it, and now we're leaving it? And we see it repeated again in Nauvoo. And I just, I think that the Kirtland Temple, to me, is an example of, of in the gospel, just kind of doing the next right thing. And when you didn't do the next right thing, recognizing you didn't do the next right thing, and then doing the next right thing, and not truly understanding the impact of what you're doing the right thing means. Certainly first to you, but then to those that will come after you. If you think about the sacrifice of the saints and what they did in Kirtland, the questions, and reasonably so, could be like, would the church still exist if we hadn't built the temple? There hadn't been that sort of forging through the sacrifice, the people that were brought to Kirtland, etc. So to me, it is every bit like a symbol of like, hey, that's how your life is. Do your best. And maybe you're going to think that building is going to be the thing that you're going to be in the rest of your life. And guess what? God may have other plans, but there are plenty of people that I'm sure it's like, yeah, no, that's exactly how I wanted it to be, and that's what it is. But like sacred moments in and around the Kirtland Temple, we got to have a zone conference one time in the Kirtland Temple where we got to sing "The Spirit of God," which, spoiler, that song is about that temple, and so singing that song in that place, the acoustics alone, but just like being like, this is literally the place where Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery and all of these people were, and the priesthood restored and the keys restored, and all of these things happened in this place. And you're singing "The Spirit of God like a fire is burning," and you're like, and I'm burning, and it's just it's just incredible is the only word I can, like, almost unbelievable had I not experienced it, but undeniable when you have that opportunity to be able to do it. And just as a quick sidebar, because I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't say something like this. And for a long time, I think that saints were like, yeah, but once the church owns it, we'll feel it differently. And, and members of the community of Christ would say things like, yeah, members will say these disparaging things about the Kirtland Temple. And now, of course, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has purchased the Kirtland Temple, and we're able to have it. And I would contend it makes no difference, except that we're paying for it. It's different in your mind because you put it in your mind that way. I felt all of these things, saw these incredible things, knew all of these incredible things, and it wasn't, I didn't look at the deed of the property and it said the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That is us getting in our own way of spiritual and religious experiences.
I love that you say that. Richie, I'm getting this really clear idea about what's unique about your love for people. I think between your mission and what you're doing now with Cultural Hall, what's really clear for me in terms of this is Will's perception of Richie's purpose on this earth is to love the saints and to help them see truth, because you have a very special, unique connection to the early saints. You feel them, you know them in a way, and so it's interesting because we, all these connection points between black and white and mercy and justice and all this, we're just talking about human beings. We're just talking about people. And you have this unique relationship with the early saints that's very special. And then you also have this bridge that goes now to the latter days, and now your Cultural Hall, and you're helping distinguish these things of what matters and what doesn't. At the end of the day, what I'm really hearing, even through your humor, is love. Oh. It's just about love and acceptance, man. It's here, we're all just doing the best that we can. We're doing what we can. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that experience you shared on the show on your show when I was a guest on your show regarding how you were able to connect with those saints?
Yeah. Okay. Gonna make me go here for a second time, Will. No.
Yes, sir. I think my audience would just love this.
So I had the opportunity to serve as a zone leader or district leader and be able to spend the night in Kirtland, and then a morning run. We got up early, companion and I, and we got to experience Kirtland quiet. So quiet. And, up before any of the cars and any of that stuff, and had the opportunity to kind of run up and around the Kirtland Temple. And it was crazy, and people think, and I said this before, but it genuinely, when I don't share this experience very much because I feel like people are like, okay, crazy. And because that's how I feel like I treat people, which is, whatever on me. But running that morning, I'm about 18 months probably in my mission, I think at this time, and get up early, super quiet, and started running up Chillicothe Road up towards the temple. And it is as though the I don't know, the veil, or I traveled back in time, or or what the experience was exactly. But as I'm running, I see the saints from the time of Joseph Smith in that time. And, they're working on they're in the town, and it's sort of bustling, and we get up around the temple, and there's the, the excitement of the temple, and people anxious to be able to have this temple that shows their sacrifice, and it sounds so crazy, but I feel like literally it was people are going in and out, and there's that activity of people talking about the things that they've learned at the feet of Joseph Smith, and there's the school of prophets, and that's in the Kirtland Temple, and the angels that are on top of the Kirtland Temple that we read about in people's accounts, where it was like it was glowing in fire. It's like I experienced every bit of that, and more than just like, oh, I fell asleep and I sort of saw it in my head. It was like it's like I saw it and felt it and knew it, and and can't deny it, and just was like, oh man, this is real. This is true. This occurred. This is where this was, and in such an experience that, like, being so candid about it, I know that people go, all right, that's a wee bit crazy there, pal. You saw like ghosts? Were they flying around? And it's like, no, it was like I had been able to have like the veil of time, or however that works, like a wormhole, blah, blah, I don't know. But being able to like be there at the time with the saints, feeling the excitement with them, feeling the angst with them, the community with them, the fervor, all of the things, and just being able to be in that space and feeling like I was one of them, one of the, if not the most sacred experiences that I've had in my life, and got to experience that there in Kirtland.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's one of those I hesitated to even ask a little bit, but I felt as I was thinking in my mind and praying about it, Richie, I'm like, no, ask him. I think it's because here's the thing I'm starting to realize, especially as we get into the latter days, is that, most people who have never had that experience, and most of us haven't had an experience like that, might judge it because there are people who leverage different ways of telling stories for different purposes, but that doesn't land that way to me. In my mind, why wouldn't we be able to even expect visions at times? I had a guest on my show by the name of Dennis Deaton, who I reference all the time. And he shares this story of interviewing saints in Europe, after World War II, early when the church was fresh and young and stuff. And they would come over and they'd be like, oh, you guys haven't seen angels? Like it was such a commonplace experience for the veil to part and for people to see people on the other side. If anything, one thing I've learned in this journey is that isn't something that can happen. It's what we should be striving to have happen for us. Like this is, and it does happen, and people don't talk about it openly. And I get why they don't. Like, number one, it's the whole pearls before swine kind of thing.
Sure.
But what I want to appreciate you sharing that is that I also think if we don't ever share these things, we don't illustrate what's possible, and not even what's possible, but what we can have. And Richie, in your case, looking as a fan of yours, as someone who loves and appreciates what you're doing and your whole life story, it's like I see it's easy for me to connect the dots in your life of like that experience. I'm sure has way more profound depth for you personally, no question.
Sure.
But your role in this, foretold time of bringing to pass all of us to come be ready for Christ's second coming, is you're connecting the saints through the love that you have. You needed to know them even more intimately to love them so that you could show up now on your show on the Cultural Hall and share this connection, this love. And it looks like, gray, as you say, but it's like at the end of the day, it's just Savior. You're like, I'll always reserve one of my favorite things about the Cultural Hall is, how do you say it? It's like
we'll be saving a seat. We'll be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
That's what you say at the end of your shows. Mm-hmm. We'll be saving a seat because I'm going to try not to get emotional. We all know how it feels to not feel like we belong, and so and when you're a parent and you have an adult child that feels that way, that like extension of having a seat saved for them with someone who's just going to accept them for being the guy who wants to sit in the back. Is the pure one of the seemingly dark horse moments of the purest love of the Savior that I can think of. It's just like, hey man, you and I are in the back. We're not sure how this whole thing is going for us personally, but we're together.
Yep.
And that's what's so powerful about that. And for you and your journey, this was an experience that you clung to as you went through different trials. Can you highlight one thing, maybe one trial, I'm sure there was lots of things that this mission experience gave you in terms of testimony for the saints, the temple, and all these different elements. But what was can you mention one trial that maybe you experienced later in life that you used, that this was a foundational rock for you to help you get through, like you had mentioned earlier?
Pick my favorite trial. Okay, let's see. What is my favorite trial we could chat about?
That was a weird question, but you kind of know where I'm going with it. It's like, I'd love an illustration of that for people to relate to.
Well, without a doubt, and especially as we talk about this audience, so I got home from my mission, and within a year and some change, I was excommunicated from the church. I always used to make the joke, it was because I came home and started my own church, and then people would stop asking me questions about why I got excommunicated. Because people are so interesting that way. Everyone wants...
People ask?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, come on.
Oh yeah. And here's why. Because I'm a guy who loves God and loves Jesus and loved my mission, and it was everything like that.
Sure. And
so then they'd be like, hey, this really outgoing person, we'd love for you to serve in this function within our ward or in our community. And I go, yeah, I'd love to. I can't. Why can't you? I'm excommunicated. What'd you get excommunicated for? Tried to start my own church, and they didn't appreciate it.
I want this to be as a message to all members of the church who are hearing me now. Asking questions about, they're seemingly innocent, but for example, if you ask a young man, so when you're turning in your papers, I don't think we're realizing, hey, we're asking them, are you worthy to serve a mission? You don't mean to, because you're culturally, and I used to do this too, man. I'm not judging from out, I'm within. It's like all the time, I would just like, it's just like the nice thing to do. You're trying to connect with a youth. You're trying to just find out what's interesting in their life. But even questions further back, like, so what's after high school for you? I've learned as a parent who had a child once who was like really trying to find any sort of path, that question was incredibly heavy.
Sure.
It's like, so what are you doing afterwards? It's like, or like, it's like when you're married. So when you guys are having kids, like, let's just be like, so what are you up to these days that's exciting for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you working on right now that excites you? That's like the safest way to do that. But when people are like, what'd you get excommunicated from? That's pretty painfully obvious. Like, let's not go there kind of thing.
Yeah. But because even though we had that whole thing around what we just talked about, I know that there are people that are listening that are like, but I still would like to know. I'm still curious. So let's just leave it at poor choices of sexual impropriety upon returning home from a mission.
Yeah.
And anything that your mind might go toward, know that it wasn't even nearly that severe. It is a series of circumstances, and that's part of the challenge for me. Had roommates and other folks that I know had done, to say far worse makes it whatever, right? But had done.
There were gradients that they didn't get. Sounds like they didn't have the same thing happen, and their gradient was definitely more significant.
Right, and so that's the first struggle, right? As I was like, well, what? This is sort of the reverse. So what's so special about me? What's so special about me that I got excommunicated? Well, this guy's got his girlfriend there. We got this, and now this is happening to me. So that's sort of the first trial with it. Second one is there's a phenomenon with being excommunicated that I don't think anyone, unless you have been excommunicated, understands, is that there is a feeling, if you believe that these individuals speak for and in behalf of God not wanting you at church. Hey, we'd love to have you around, can't participate, but, come around, sure, you bet, or not.
Almost like it may be that feeling of like, we're not going to turn you away. Yeah. It's like they're saying come, but they're like, if you want. Like, it's not like that same desire.
Yeah. And so there was every bit of that. I remember first Sunday. Well, for the sake of making this a little lighter for a second, I remember the first thing, I get back into my car after finding out I was excommunicated and being like, I don't know what underwear I'm going to wear. All my underwear is garments. Is it all right that I wear my garments tonight? And I actually asked them the question, and they're like, yeah, and then get some other underwear tomorrow, and then you're not wearing garments anymore because it was explicit. You don't do that as you're excommunicated. And then I remember that first Sunday where I'm sitting in the parking lot. I pulled in, and it was like, all right, are you going in or are you staying in your car? And I remember being like, well, if God doesn't want me, why would I go in there? Why would I want to be in there? It made it pretty clear. And but But then I remember being like, it's probably the place that you should be. I wish that this was a moment that I was like, and I recall the saints and they lifted me and carried. It wasn't. I just was like, I should probably go in. But I do remember, because I was excommunicated for probably like better part of a decade, maybe 8 or 9 years. And I would go to church every week, and I would participate as much as people would let me. There were some opportunities along the way. I was part of a performing group, and we would perform firesides, and I was allowed to like bear testimony within that sort of thing. There were like some bishops or stake presidents that would allow me to hold like very small callings, like you can call people and remind them that church is on Sunday, like that kind of a calling, right? Or like you can print the program, you'll be program printer guy. Yeah. That's your calling. But all the while just sort of knowing where I needed to be as far as my life goes, and then just not being there. And so to take the question that you asked and then the experiences that I've shared, like that was the thing for me. A lot of people are like, well, why didn't you just leave? So much easier if you left. You don't have to come. You don't have the rules. You didn't have the rules anymore at that point. And it really was a culmination of like answered prayers before I went on my mission, and then just the experience on my mission where I was like, no, this is true. This is right. This is what I need to be a part of. I don't have questions around this. I have behaviors that are, precluding me from being able to participate in this, but it was never like, there weren't saints. You didn't have that experience. You didn't see people's lives change as they engaged in the gospel. There was never any sort of that. Or like you were misled or this and that. It literally was just like, yeah, I mean, you'll get there. You got some things. You're gonna kind of figure that out. But, ultimately, where you want to be and you'll get there. And so, you fast forward and I got married, and then largely any of the issues that I had that were keeping me out of the church disappeared with being married, and then was able to be rebaptized and was like, yeah, here we go. Let's go. Now I'm back in and part of it. And I have lots of feelings about most of those steps along the way, but for the sake of this, I would just tell you, it's not, we do not do our excommunicated brothers and sisters a great favor in how we treat them, and I think it's largely because we don't know it unless you've been through it. Yeah. And those in leadership have not ever been through it.
Yes. Man, here's what's interesting. You made the comment, like, as you were going through this trial of going back to being baptized and being excommunicated, you're in a place where you never thought about that vision in Kirtland. I didn't realize how often I said that wrong, by the way, until just now. But it's one of those things where, but you still, like, it changed you. And I think the way that it changed you, of course, with the testimony of the Savior and all those things, that's like without saying. The uniqueness of your testimony has to deal with the saints, this ability to connect to like people in a way that almost like created space for people to be imperfect in your journey.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not putting any judgment on either side of that equation, you or the leaders who are involved. But what I do know is that you have a bunch of imperfect people, which is the church, doing the best they can with the process. And you were able to navigate those feelings because of your grounded faith in the saints as a whole, regardless of any, how it was handled by anyone and how and like people, even down to people asking why you were excommunicated. Like you were able to see, for a lot of people, Richie, I just want to highlight, for a lot of people, they'd be like, judgment, I'm out. And I would not judge them for feeling that way at all. You were able to kind of just like, well, this is annoying and I'm coming back every week anyway. Like because of that. So I see that connection, which is cool in such an inspiring way, that like a true love of the Savior creates almost infinite grace, or it should, at least hopefully for us, for others, in a way of like, well, because we're going to be mistreated. We're going to have people say the question that maybe we shouldn't be asked. Like they're just going to be insensitive. I am thinking of very specific examples in my mind right now, but I can't, because if I share them, people will know who they are. But it's like, there's just trials that we go through that people ask. So I have to ask, what was that? I'm just curious. What was that like when you went back to the temple?
Well, did we talk about this before? I can't
No.
remember if I told you about this.
No, not at all.
Well, yes, but let me because in addition to Kirtland, I have one other thing that I just want to make sure
Please.
and address. People dismiss bad behavior within the church by saying, "Well, we're imperfect. God is perfect," and that is true. And also, like if someone says to you, "Hey," that question is not necessarily a great question, and they're willing to engage with you in that conversation around it. I think that for you to say something like, "Well, I don't know why you're so offended by it," or "What? Well, we're just imperfect. We're just doing the best we can." I do not care for when we use that as an excuse.
Blanket excuse.
Yeah. Am I trying to be better? I am so sorry that happened to you. That must have been rough to be excommunicated and feel like you shouldn't have been excommunicated.
Sure.
Not dismissed with, "Well, the church is imperfect, so, but, or the people are imperfect, but the church is perfect, so I hope."
I appreciate that. You're saying we should hold a standard. And that's like, it's not like, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's like, no, we've got to reform that. We've got to set standards. And again, that's what the Savior does for us individually. We should do that with each other as well.
Yes. So going back to the temple after being out of the church, for almost 10 years, nerve-wracking. And here's why. I got endowed and then went on a mission, and I went like once or twice. I wasn't one of these guys that's like, and every day after I got my call, I went to the temple every day and all that. It's like, I think I went once, and I can remember, this is around the turn of the millennia, I can remember the first time going through the temple with my dad and being like, "They want me to what? What are we doing?" And my dad's like, "It's okay." And I'm like, And then go and serve the mission. And Kirtland Temple, obviously not a functioning temple as far as that goes, endowments. And there wasn't another temple in my mission, so we didn't have that opportunity to be able to do that way. And then I think I went one time when I got home from my mission, like, "Hey, I'm home, I'm going to go to the temple," and then sort of other parts of life. So it had legitimately been half a dozen times that I had been before I was excommunicated, and then put 10 years in between it. And there is a lot, and I'll be delicate in the way that I speak about it, there is a lot that happens in the temple that when you go to the temple more, you feel more comfortable with.
Sure.
Things that you need to know and remember and do and all that stuff. And so having not done that, I'm just a big old ball of nerves, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't even know if I go, my clothes don't fit. Can I still rent clothes? Do we do that? Yeah. I don't have a name. Do I need a name? But, so I'm just all of these things. It was like I was going through the temple for myself, and I had decided to go by myself because I didn't want to, bring someone along, or I don't know. I just decided that was the thing that I was going to do. I was going to go by myself. And I just was a stress case about it. And I remember coming in, I'm like, is this the right door? Am I dressed appropriately? Like, is my tie? Like, I could not have been more anxious about it. And but I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm back. I can do this. I paid my tithing, so I can do this. I passed the thing, and this is where I need to be. And, they check me in, and I have the temple recommend, and there's a certain part of it to me that was like, that's right, I'm back. Because when you get rebaptized, you still have to wait a year to be able to be admitted and do the temple work, right? So this is not only now I've been back in the church and functioning for a while, but this is like the culmination of the whole back process.
Yes.
So stressed. Throw the temple recommend down, and they're like, yeah, okay, scan and let you in. And they're like, do you have a name that you're going to do? And I said, no, I don't. And they said, that's all right, we'll give you one. And they take you, I think this is the Jordan River Temple, they take you kind of to this little side place, and they're like, hey, here's your name that you'll be going through the temple for. And you know how you can wander through life and you're like, maybe God, but maybe not God. You can sort of question, if God was there, why does that happen to that person? Or really, God, you had a plan as far as this? Or how, we can sometimes, even the most believing of people, I think that sometimes you can have like doubts, and this was a thing that I just was like, I'm so overwhelmed by this, and I get the name for the work that I was going to do in the temple, and the last name is Steadman, which is my last name.
Oh my gosh!
And I just, and even as I tell it right now, I'm just like, okay, all right, I get it.
Message received.
Yeah, message received. We're doing this, huh? Yeah, I got you. I'm team you. You're team me. Let's go. And coincidence? Maybe some people could write it off as far as that goes. But without question for me, it was God saying, hey, you big ball of nerves, you big ridiculous guy that's been out for a decade, welcome back. How about I let you know that I care about you in a way that I know that you will see that I care about you and that you are known. Here's this last name of Steadman. And I just was like, oh, okay.
It's so special. I love that story. You know, I had the coincidence comment. I always like to quote my son, Alex, who's coming home. He says halfway through his mission, you know, because he's very logical.
Sure.
He's one of those guys that like he feels the gospel through thinking like logically. There's not like this burning, you know, and he told me, he goes, in an email, he's like, you know, after a while, the coincidences become so significant that the likelihood of there being something else going on is more likely than not.
Yep.
And that idea that like when we have those miracles that happen, it's these personal communications that the Lord knows how we're going to receive it.
Yep.
So I love this story, and I can't thank you enough. I know there's more. There's so much more that we have to say on all these things, but I want to make sure that we leave even a little bit more for maybe another time. But for now, I'd love to finish with some rapid fire questions if you're open for that.
Oh, all right. Is there a little ticker? Are we editing in later?
No,
ticker in
I always do this kind of off the cuff, and it's just something right there. So some fun, some kind of serious. Fun one, favorite temple?
Favorite temple is the Kirtland Temple. So much so that I had an architect who does temple work for the church. He drew up fan fiction temple work plans about how they could make it a functioning baptismal celestial room temple.
Oh, that's so cool. Yep. Man, it's like its own episode. Love it. So something a little bit more serious. What was something that you would want to tell someone who's listening, who's been excommunicated, and they're hearing you and they're really relating? What's something you would want them to know?
I would tell them, come or let me know where you're going to church, and I will sit with you because that first time back, if you haven't been back in a long time, you need someone, even if it's just like, you know, just someone being present with you. And I would also tell you that it is worth it to come back. And I would also tell you that you don't have to figure out every part of like why excommunication was the process for you all at once, but it will come to you over time.
So beautiful. One more kind of in that vein. What would you want members of the church who haven't been excommunicated, what would you want them to know? Because you've been through the whole arc. What would you want them to know so that they know how to better support someone who has been excommunicated?
Love them unconditionally of what they choose. Show up for them if they're trying to come back, if they're not trying to come back. It's basically just like the 2 great commandments, love God and then love your neighbor. But I think it's an extra dose of like, hey, we can sometimes get in the way of like, well, when you do this, I can love you a little bit more, and when you do this, and I just would say, it is hard, it is lonely, it is very misunderstood. In large part, it is you don't feel like anyone else understands or knows the pain that you have been through. So I would tell you to unconditionally love that person and not set expectations as to I can love them more or be more for them if they would A, B, or C.
Love that. Unconditional love, but better defined. Thank you. Okay, more fun. So we're somewhere in the world that you've been, that you've loved, or somewhere you want to go in the world?
Somewhere I've been, Chicago. I love it. There is such an energy of Chicago. Maybe I'll end up moving there one day, but that is just an incredible place to me. And place that I would like to go that I have not ever been, that I just think would be kind of fun. I think that I would like to go to Africa.
Okay. Awesome.
The whole continent. I'm going to knock out the whole continent.
We're going next year. You got to come with me. Okay, 2 more quick questions. The first one is, how do people hear? How do they learn about? How do they listen to Cultural Hall? How do they get a hold of it?
You can find the Cultural Hall any place that you find Temple Bound. It's called The Cultural Hall, and you will see hundreds upon hundreds of episodes. You can follow and subscribe there on Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. all the social medias at the Cultural Hall, and you can also find me personally at Richie T. Steadman anywhere on the socials.
Okay, love that. Last question, and please go listen to this show. I am such a fan of it. Last question. Temple Bound is one part family history at the very end. This is like you being recorded. In your case, your kids are going to have like infinite videos of their dad, but I don't know if they've ever had any videos of you just talking to them. What would be one message you would want them to know about today's topic? What would you want them to know about what we talked about today?
Oof. Okay, let me think about
I finished really light.
Yeah. Man, what would I want them to know about this? I'm
so proud of myself that I asked a question that like had you not be able to respond verbally. You're one of the most communicative guys I've met, so this is great.
Well, there's so much weight, right? I think the through line for my life is, and I think it sums up the black and white and the gray and the the walk with God, etc. And here's what I would say. I think, regardless of like where you're at now, never give up. And the reason that I love like the just keep trying, just keep swimming, the never ever give up, that all these quotes that we sort of think about is like for those that are really striving for like perfection, this thing that we're taught, and there's some part of you that drives you daily to try and to do a little bit better each day, is literally, I feel like the only thing that you can be perfect in is never giving up. Everything else I think that you can fail completely at, but you can pick up and then never give up and just continue, and along the way with never giving up, you learn more about yourself and about the people that are surrounding you, and you learn more about the nature of God, and I think you in essence become more perfect by just refusing to stop trying.
Richie, thank you so much for being on Temple Bound. And for everyone who's listening, I'm so grateful that you tuned into this point. We are so inspired by Richie's message of beautiful perspective and how we can relate to the saints and have that connection across the board. So thanks again for tuning into Temple Bound, reminding you as always that your value has nothing to do with what you do. You're lovable because you exist, and never give up. Until next time. Temple Bound is brought to you by the Light on a Hill Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at building and strengthening families across the globe. Produced by Heather Humphreys, with show notes and social media managed by Isabel Dizen and Kimberly Simbahan. Wardrobe by Ann Collar. These views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are on their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you for joining us today as we continue learning, growing, and striving to bind our lives closer to the Savior. Until next time.